building. And so obviously to appropriate, trying to put together a show, but working in the space for an extended amount of time, so it's quite a site-specific installation. I'm not coming in here with a particular idea of putting works up. I'm coming in with the idea of making works in the space, about the space. So that's how that sort of came about. And it's kind of like, I can describe it as almost like conversing with the space. So my ideas have changed as I've gone along, trying to create, I suppose, an experience of a space. So there has to be a particular fluidity to the way the work moves and works you through the space. And also observing, I suppose, the actual space. This is really perfect. There's nothing in the space, but there still is a lot here. There's a lot of evidence of activity, from the markings on the floor, from the half-built offices in the back there. So that, and that's all you need. It's not actively making a lot of work. It's been an enormous amount of observing and almost acclimatising yourself to the space, and simple things like a huge old fire door. I just like to paint it over in a gloss white, and you sort of pull that object out, and it's really about being able to observe that in a singular form, to create things that perhaps reform the space in some ways. There are some sections in the back there where you have half-made walls, and all you've got is the structure of the wall. So it's really about working with those, and I'm not trying to change that structure, but maybe I'm trying to sort of reformulate that structure. I'm really taking photographs, particularly at the moment I'm doing it in sections. So I'll do the back section. It's really about doing some close-up views of the walls, of a bolt hanging out the wall and windows, but really cropped views. And the idea of that is to sort of look at sort of detail in a singular way, so that it's kind of a different viewpoint if you're looking at things in that way, rather than looking at the space as a whole expanse. You come in one day, and I didn't have anything really planned, and I thought I'll just mask out one of these shadows of the windows. And I noticed that from the time it took me to actually mask up one, just through that expanse of time, it might have been 10-15 minutes, the shadow had progressed from the next window dramatically forward. So I thought, this is a good reflection of time here. I don't need to represent these shadows exactly as they are in the same position, which was the idea. Actually showing two, I suppose, spatially conflicting shadows side by side, you're able to reflect that sort of transition of light coming through the space, I think in a more dramatic or profound way than just representing the shadow statically the same across the four windows that there's here in a sort of a tape version of them. The plastic itself has a particular opacity to the way you look through it. It does a few things. I think it kind of shows that sort of temporary nature to my work, and also there's to do with the sort of wrapping or the way it hangs. I initially used the plastic to imitate painting, strokes of painting. Wall, so if you've got these lines of plastics, that's the idea that I'll be doing in here, is creating a wall that sort of helps guide you through the space. So the particular timing of these sort of strips coming down, I initially did that as an imitation, because part of my work was about, it always is about imitating something, and that the plastic initially was picked up. I used to use tape as well, adhesive tape, and that was just the way to imitate painting strokes as well. So it sort of goes back to that language of painting, but